Hello all, thank you for joining in. So we'll be starting in next couple of minutes. Stock market. Hello everyone, very good evening and thank you for joining the webinar. So today we Cyber SRC Consultancy are here to present our webinar on the topic Certain Guidelines for Secure Application Development and Operations. So in this session, we will explore the critical guidelines set by Certain for ensuring robust security in application development and operational practices. This webinar is particularly designed to provide you with practical insights and best practices to enhance your cybersecurity posture. So moving on to the introduction of our organization. So we are Cyber SRC Consultancy Private Limited. We are Cert-IN empaneled ISO 27001 and 9001 certified organization, which is having traction with the industry leaders and helping them resolve complex problems in the domains of cybersecurity, data governance and protection, IT audits and assurance, and compliance and risk management. We have challenged the bygone technological and business outlook towards security domains, and our goal is to assist the organizations globally, including the MSMEs, SMEs, and enterprises, to enhance their capabilities and effectiveness in the cybersecurity defenses and minimize the enterprise and IT risk and manage security operations and to help them achieve the regulatory compliance. Now, moving on to the introduction of the speaker for today. So, we have Mr. Rahul, who is a seasoned security consultant with over 3 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity. He holds the valuable Certified Ethical Hacker certification and has pursued a postgraduate diploma in cybersecurity. He has extensive knowledge of security assessments and testings, including the web and mobile application security, and expertise in IT and OT network infrastructure security assessment. So we are thrilled to have Rahul share his insights and expertise with us today. His extensive background in cybersecurity and practical experience in securing applications and networks will provide invaluable knowledge for our attendees. So we hope that you have a productive session ahead, and please feel free to reach out for any queries related to the demo at the end of the session. Thank you so much, and over to you, Rahul.
Thank you, Sakshi, for the generous introduction, and a very good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining the webinar event. So I will be taking you through the slides explaining certain aspects to make the participants and public aware about the latest guidelines issued by Cert-In in the month of January 2024. So our agenda for the call would be to firstly discuss on the introduction and purpose, like that is understanding the application security guidelines, applicability and scope of the guidelines, and establishing down, and then we'll be discussing on the phases of the guidelines. First phase is of the establishing the context of security in designing of the application. Then we'll be discussing on the implementation and ensuring secure development practices, the audit guidelines ones we have to follow, and then how we can ensure secure application deployment and hello, I'm audible. In the last, we'll be having an engaging and inquiring session regarding the interactive Q&A session. So talking about the introduction and purpose thing. So in an era where digital transformation is accelerating at an exponential pace, ensuring the security of our applications is more important than ever. As we all know, vulnerabilities in applications often stem from insecure design, development, implementation, and operations. Relying solely on post-development audit is inadequate. Security must be an integral part of the application design and development lifecycle. Organizations should adopt secure development practices and ensure adherence to best practices from the outset. Following these guidelines help build applications with inherent security, reducing the risk of breaches. These guidelines also suggest source code review and black box testing by certain appellate auditors like us to identify any security lapses. So moving on to the next slide, we will be discussing on the applicability and scope of the guideline. So the Cert-In issued this guideline for entities developing or outsourcing application development, especially for the government sector. So the objective is to establish a robust security baseline throughout the application development lifecycle, encompassing design, development, deployment, and maintenance. The guidelines are designed to be customizable and integrated from the outset of a project. They emphasize secure design, including architectural considerations and environmental integration. It highlights that applications without secure design and development practices are unsuitable for audits and assessments. The guideline covers four phases, namely establishing the context of security in application design, implementing secure development practices, auditing the applications, and ensuring secure development, deployment, and operations. So these all phases will be discussing in detail in the next slides. So coming on to the first phase, that is establishing the context of the security in designing of application. So today, as we all know, security is moving from reactive to proactive approach, as it not even reduces cost, but also provides a thorough assessment of the entire application while on development and ensures security on all aspects of the pipeline. So it is recommended to introduce security right from the design and planning phase of the application development. So now we will be discussing on the security by design approach. This approach involves integrating security measures into the design and architecture of a system or application from the early stages of development. It emphasizes proactive inclusion of security controls and safeguards at the foundational level, aiming to create inherently secure, resilient systems that are resistant to threats and attacks. Now, moving on to the next slide, adoption of secure software development lifecycle. Secure SDLC integrates security practices throughout the software development lifecycle, ensuring compliance with global standards and building robust security measures to reduce breaches and protect data. So key frameworks include Microsoft SDL, a holistic approach towards software development that incorporates security and privacy considerations into every phase of the development process. OASP, Security Assurance Maturity Model, which is having 4 levels and various security practices. Agile Security Development Lifecycle that incorporates security in agile methods. NIST Secure Software Development Framework that is a comprehensive framework for the secure development. So these frameworks and models help organizations deliver secure and reliable software. So now moving on to the next slide, that is engagement of security trained designers and developers. Designers and developers in application development should have a solid grasp of cybersecurity fundamentals and practical knowledge of secure application development principles. Their role includes identifying reasons for weaknesses and vulnerabilities in application, ensuring a proactive approach to security throughout the development lifecycle. Now coming on to the next slide, that is the next phase, implementation and ensuring secure development practices. Implementing data protection and privacy measures requires diverse methodologies to ensure secure information management. It is essential to coordinate actions that integrate secure development practices. Now we will be discussing in detail on the various principles of secure development practices. So first principle is of the authentication, authorization and session management. Secure authentication and authorization mechanisms prevent unauthorized access and maintain system integrity by validating user identities and controlling resource access. Diligent session management prevents vulnerabilities by systematically handling user sessions and applying security controls. Access control through regulatory rules and policies ensure that only authorized users have exclusive access to specific assets or information within an application. Next up is the cryptographic practices. So these practices protect sensitive information using encryption to make data unreadable, digital signatures to verify data integrity, and hashing to create fixed size data representations. We should avoid outdated techniques and custom implementations for enhanced security. Now, next up is the version control and change management. Version control tracks application configuration and source code changes, facilitating collaboration, maintaining change history, and enabling rollbacks for testing and compliance. Change management plans, analysis, approves, and implement changes to ensure thorough assessment, testing, documentation, and control of applications or systems. So Git is one of the tools that we can use for the version controlling. Next up is the secure coding. So once it is recommended to use regex and built-in security controls to validate and sanitize user inputs, preventing SQL injection, accesses, and command injection. The special characters can be converted to safe formats by using URL encoding and also we can use escaping techniques to prevent injection attacks and maintaining code integrity. Next up is the file and memory management. So it is advisable to securely handle files and operations to prevent vulnerabilities. The spaces should be properly allocated and reallocated to avoid any buffer overflow or memory leak. Next is the optimization of code of complexity. So the complex system should be streamlined by addressing concurrency, dependency management, and coupling. Concurrency can be achieved by dividing applications into independent processes and threads for parallel execution. Next up is the development of software technology specific security checklist. A secure coding specific checklist to each technology language should be created and implemented by development to ensure it addresses security flaws, identifies exceptions, and verifies conformance to secure coding practices. Every programming language has its own boon and bane. So we should consider the boons of that particular programming language while using. So every programming language has its own secure libraries that one should use, and they should be updated with once we are uh, deploying the application. Next up is the security test driven development. The security testing should be incorporated throughout the SDLC by writing security tests before code to identify vulnerabilities early. Static scans should be performed before deployment, followed by dynamic scans post deployment. The code should be refactored to address security gaps without affecting the functionality. Next up is the threat modeling. So it is essential to determine application boundaries, components, data flows, and interfaces for identifying potential threats to the system prior to development. The data flow diagrams should be created to visualize access points and associated threats. Countermeasures should be developed and tested to mitigate these threats. Periodic threat modeling should be conducted to maintain ongoing security. Next up is the build secure environment for application development. Development should be done in secure separated environment to prevent unauthorized access. Logging, monitoring, and auditing of trust relationship between the client end and the server end should be implemented. Multi-factor authentication and conditional access shall be enforced. Sensitive data like PII and credentials should be encrypted. It is also essential to employ continuous monitoring and timely incident response. Next, we will be discussing on the secure use of environment variables. So they should be used instead of plain text files for controlled file access, and environment variable input should be treated as untrusted, and validation should be implemented on them accordingly. Sensitive information in environment variables should not be done to prevent unauthorized access. Next up is the stored procedures over SQL statements. Stored procedures should replace SQL statements to mitigate injection attacks by restricting direct user access to database tables and adding an extra layer of security. Integrating stored procedures with encryption, access control policies, and network security measures is crucial. Addressing issues like version control and potential database vendor lock-in is also important for secure implementation. Next up is the handling of error messages, commented code, and exceptions. So before deploying an application to production, we should remove all commented code and ensure sensitive information like system details, network configuration, passwords, server names, IP addresses, or file system paths is not exposed to error messages or URLs. We should implement robust exception handling with try-catch blocks, providing user feedback on errors, log errors, and thoroughly test the exception handling mechanism. Maintaining access and error logs to facilitate troubleshooting and enhancing application security. Now, next we will be discussing on the linear data structures and multiple inheritance. So the space for arrays, linked lists, stacks, and vectors should be allocated based on the needed size. The access modifiers like public, private, protected should be used to control data structure visibility. Multiple inheritances to avoid safeguard against code vulnerabilities, maintaining object-oriented programming principles. Next, we'll be discussing on the third-party and open source libraries, their components and APIs. So it is advisable to implement security wrappers for third-party libraries by encapsulating these libraries with additional security measures or controls to enhance their security posture. We should be validating the exception handling mechanism of them and enforcing strong exception handling at data entry and exit points. The third-party component should be evaluated before integration. API rate limits should be used for stability, and API keys should be securely managed with encryption and regular rotation. A software bill of material should be maintained to track and avoid vulnerable components, thereby bolstering overall application security. Next up is the building of trust boundaries. The trust boundaries should be established between front-end entry and exit points and the backend of the application. Data received from the client-side validations should be treated as untrusted and undergo thorough validation at the backend. Next, we'll be discussing on the principle of least privileges. The principle of least privilege should be adhered to by assigning only the minimum necessary privileges. Grant privileges as needed and promptly revoke them once their purpose is fulfilled. Implement specific rules tailored for different users and devices to ensure consistent enforcement across all environments. Next is the enhancement of software security maturity. It is advisable to improve software security by integrating models like CMMI, Capability Maturity Model Integration. It provides the framework to evaluate, define, and enhance software development processes. It includes level from ad hoc processes at level 1 to well-organized and continuously improving processes at level 5. Code reviews typically become critical at levels 2 and 3 of the CMMI framework. So next we'll be discussing on the phase 3 of the guideline, that is the audit of applications. So in this phase, firstly we will be discussing on the source code review, which identifies security flaws and vulnerabilities, ensuring coding standards, adherence, and bug detection. Manual and automated reviews assess logic, design, and large code bases for vulnerabilities like SQL injection and cross-site scripting. Integrating static application security testing and dynamic application security testing enhances security throughout the software development lifecycle, thereby boosting the application security in both development and real-world environments. So now moving on to the next slide, we'll be discussing on the security vulnerability assessment. So organizations should engage certain independent auditors for comprehensive security audits of their applications, aiming to identify vulnerabilities as per cybersecurity audit baseline requirement, OAuth standards, and relevant regulatory guidance. Critical vulnerabilities must be promptly patched with follow-up audits verifying their closure. Vulnerability assessment should be conducted annually or with significant changes to maintain security. Now, moving on to the next slide, we will be discussing on the penetration testing part. This involves simulating a real-world cyber attacks on system, networks, or applications to identify potential security threats. Conducting penetration testing iteratively with each code release or modification helps prioritize and remediate vulnerabilities proactively. Next, we'll be discussing on the timelines for completion of audit. So clear guidelines should be set in audit reports for fixing vulnerabilities to ensuring quick and effective responses to security issues, focusing on fixing the most critical problems first. Regular testing promotes constant improvement, reducing security weaknesses and enhancing protection against cyber threats. Next, we'll be discussing on the logging and audit trails. So the logging and audit trail functionalities should be integrated in the application for troubleshooting and compliance. Logging aids in error detection and performance optimization by recording detailed application activities, while audit trails enhance security and accountability by documenting user actions and system events. Next, we'll be discussing on the preconditions for assessment and audit. Applications must be developed using secure design and development practices before being considered for assessment and audits. Auditing organizations and auditee organizations should ensure the application's compliance with secure practices prior to initiating any assessment. Now we'll be coming on to the next phase of the guideline, that is ensuring secure application deployment and operations. So we should ensure audited application code and configurations are maintained unchanged in a secure tested environment. We should implement continuous logging and monitoring and use configuration management tools like Ansible or Puppet for deployment. They should be assessed for the security of their gaps, and we should apply secure communication protocols, access controls, firewalls, VPNs, and IP restrictions. For automated tools like Docker, Kubernetes, and Jenkins, We should ensure proper security measures and regular updates to maintain a secure deployment environment. Next up is the provision for patch and update. We should prepare comprehensive documentation detailing security features in the architecture, code base, APIs, and data interactions. We should ensure backward compatibility to avoid disrupting existing APIs and data structures. We should implement a structured process for patching vulnerabilities, including rigorous testing, change control, and communication with stakeholders. Next up is the secure development of update, patch, and release to mitigate against supply chain risk from developers. Secure development of updates is crucial to mitigate the supply chain attacks originating from developers. This involves thorough testing, digitally signing code using certificates, and employing secure update distribution mechanisms to prevent tampering or unauthorized modifications. By emphasizing security throughout the application development lifecycle, organizations can effectively mitigate risks associated with supply chain vulnerabilities, ensuring the integrity and safety of their software updates. Prioritizing developer account security on code sharing platforms with strong access controls and monitoring is essential. Implementing and maintaining secure build and deployment pipelines with rigorous enforcement for security checks further enhances protection against vulnerabilities. So here are few of the cyber SRC offerings and capabilities that one can take help for implementing DevSecOps guideline in their environment. So I will be explaining the services in detail. Like firstly is the web application VAPT, wherein we'll be doing the security testing of your web applications and identifying any security gaps according to the security best practices set by various standards like OWASP, TEST, SANS, etc. And we'll also be covering up that VAPT part on the mobile applications, networks, servers, your cloud environments, and also we'll be checking the configuration and how they are being hardened for the security. Also, we can assist in the DevSecOps implementation in any environment. And also, we will be testing the APIs, dev services, doing the source code reviews, checking the configuration of the infrastructure as a code or the policy as a code that you have implemented for automated infrastructures, open source packages scanning, the SBOM scanning, and container image scanning, and the cloud native application security assessment. So how can Cyber SRC help? So Cyber SRC offers a pool of experts and experienced cybersecurity practitioners who are aware of the challenges faced by the industry. The security experts will collaborate with the entities to implement strategy that is tailored to their organization structure and culture. They will provide the structure, transparency, and guidance to the organization which they require globally for their application security. At Cyber SRC, we work with the customers to develop programs that will support them to stay focused on their business goals and provide valuable insight to enhance their security posture. So our team is of qualified professionals with rich experience of multiple industries such as manufacturing, banking, insurance, healthcare, NBFCs, and others. Our consultants and auditors are industry experts and have proven track records. Some of the renowned certificates that our consultant holds, such as CISA, CIPM, CEH, OSCP, to name a few. We believe in adding value to your business, which is enabled through our Center of Excellence, and we have end-to-end capability for program build operations transformation. So thank you all for being here today. Your time and attention are truly appreciated. So if anybody have any queries, they can ask. No.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm audible, Rahul?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, that was a wonderful presentation. Actually, I have like a very small query. There is an application me and my like couple of friends are developing, and during testing phase, we found out that during runtime, the credentials are getting dumped in memory. So, what we can do in order to protect like this sort of situation?
So the credentials are getting dumped in like the server memory or like that the client side.
During the runtime in CPU, oh sorry, in memory, RAM.
So is it like you are using some cache that is like getting like triggering the credential to be stored, getting stored
It's
in
let
the
me tell you like a little about the application. Just like you might have heard of Tele. Tele is accounting software.
right.
Okay, just like that, we are trying to build a like an offline application. Okay, but like it also include couple of other things. So what we found is when user are logging in and syncing their data like with the cloud and all. So at that time when user logged in, their credentials are getting dumped over the memory.
Okay.
Okay, and they're plain text. It's like when you do mobile VAPT, somehow like you might have come across a similar situation. So I have like read couple of internet forums like here and there, like researched myself, but couldn't like come across a single solution which might help me. So, and any idea like how like what can I do
Okay.
or like how this could be sorted?
So just to confirm,
That's
it is
all.
is it a Windows based application or like mobile application?
It's a Windows application, but sync with cloud as well. Like when the user want, they can sync the data over the cloud application.
Okay.
Else, it's going to run offline only.
So the credentials are getting dumped in the user machine, right?
Yes, at the in the memory.
So we like the application might be using some caching thing that is like like storing credentials in the user machine for future use. Is it that so?
Mm, I have to actually check about it, like if that's the flow going on. As far as I know, like we are not using any sort of like cache part because it's going to be a fintech app, and we really don't want to save anything anywhere. So like the token management and the session management part are like very strong.
Okay.
We are using like all the possibilities whatsoever we could have come across, and I'm not sure like if we are using cache. As far as I know, it's not there, but I'm not sure actually about it. But if you
So
say, yeah, surely I will look into it. Please tell me, like,
yeah,
what
we
sort of a
can.
solution we can have it.
Yeah, we can surely connect separately on this. We can you can note down the details
Okay,
as present on the screen.
lovely. Sure. I will surely get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so any more questions? Anybody?
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining this. We really appreciate your participation, and I hope that this session was productive and helpful to you. So, in case you would have any queries further related to this topic or any other security related topic, so you can reach out to the details that is being shown on the screen currently. So, moving ahead, we are closing this session, and thank you for your participation.